admit, I really did not see any of this game. I caught highlights after the game. I was at a wedding and getting ready for a wedding. I had a lot to do. One of the reasons why I could not do the show last Tuesday. But the college football rankings are coming out here tonight in about 10 minutes. Along with obviously the first results of 20 million people waiting to find out what the hell is going to happen in our country. Smart on college football to say who cares. But nonetheless, Ohio State moves to number 3. Penn State drops to number 6. From everything I saw and heard, a little bit, it was a good game. Penn State got out early. It looked like Ohio State dominated the second half. But your takeaway as a Penn State fan?
I mean, it's a classic James Franklin game. Get out early, make Penn State fans think we can actually get over the hump, and then no. Like, was I celebrating when Penn State got the pick 6 and went up 10-0? Yes, but then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is Ohio State. They'll come back, score a touchdown, and that's exactly what they did. Yeah, the way this game played out was not surprising to me in the slightest. Ohio State and Michigan have both proven to be the boogeyman for James Franklin. As a Penn State fan, I want him fired because, I mean,
every single Ohio State Penn State game goes the same way. It literally does. Penn State gets up early. They can even take a lead going into the fourth quarter, and you're like, they're not going to win this game.
Yep. 2016 was a complete and total fluke.
I would say the game that hurt me was 2018. The game that was at the shoe. Saquon Barkley returned the opening kick.
Oh, yeah. I remember that game. Trust me.
The year after that, I don't know if you remember, that was the night game in Napa Valley. On 4th and 5, James Franklin basically called a QB sneak.
Yeah. Well, it's Happy Valley. Napa Valley is over in California.
You're right. Thank you for correcting me. I misspoke.
Yeah, that was in the whiteout, which I still don't understand why this was a top 5 game and you put it at noon.
You and many other Penn State fans who were chanting F Big Noon Kickoff. But I will say, the data does tell you that Big Noon Kickoff is the most viewed window of college football this year.
Yeah, but I still like College Game Day better. And speaking of that, the whiteout game is against Washington, but you can only watch it if you have Peacock.
I mean, listen,
that's dumb.
It's the world we live in now. But college football is weird this year. Like we talked about it. I think the last time I was on the air with you, we had both thought that Texas was the best team in the country by a country mile, and Georgia demolished them.
Yep. And am I going to say Oregon's the best team? No, but they're probably going to come out as number 1 in these rankings.
Honestly, I actually think they're in the conversation, obviously, for number 1 because they do probably have the best record out of any unbeaten team by beating Ohio State. I'm not going to take away from Texas. I'm not going to take away from Georgia or Ohio State or, even Penn State for that matter. I think this is the most balanced college football season that we have ever had. And for all my criticisms of the 12-team playoff, and I still kind of wish it was 8 or 6, I think that would give a little even more urgency to these games instead of, if you're a Penn State fan, Josh, my biggest criticism of college football now is Ohio State beat us. Oh, well, we're still going to be in the CFP. I want that feeling from you as a fan to, oh my God, we lost this game. We may not make it.
Yeah, I totally get your criticism there. And it's completely valid also. It's it does take away from the importance of these games at least a little bit. I'll be curious to see where Indiana is ranked.
How about Indiana? But by the way, Indiana and Iowa State, those are 2 teams that I did not expect at all to be in the top 10. And I like this comment here from Josh's dad, Dan. What's your take on name, image, likeness, and the zillions of dollars flowing to student athletes? Does it take away from the purity of college ball and athletics? Well,
No.
Dan, you probably know Josh's take on this, so I'll give you my take on it. When it first started, I was not a fan of name, image, likeness. I always thought kids go to college to go to college. They should not get paid, obviously, to play sports. But as we've seen and as time has gone on in college sports, I think this really is typical now for college football, somewhat college basketball, but college basketball has always been a mess, in my opinion, due to the one and done rule the sport has instituted. But
Which
what we
college basketball is starting back up next week? We got Kentucky playing Michigan State and Kansas taking on Duke.
And what we've seen, in college football is I don't know if it takes away from the purity of college ball and athletics. I think what we have seen is this year specifically, we're starting to see the effects of NIL and we're starting to see the effects of the transfer portal. Where these teams, it's almost like free agency right in the NFL where they're getting these players for a year or two. But when you add players to one side, you're obviously taking away players from another side. And it has really created the most balanced college football that we have ever seen.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I can't definitively tell you one team is going to win the national championship over another. I feel like in the years past, like, we kind of knew, for example, I think we all kind of knew Michigan was the best team in college football last season.
We knew there was 3 or 4 teams that could win the championship, and even going into the year, I thought there was 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6. You could push it. Now I think we're talking 5 or 6, and maybe you push it to 7 or 8.
And, and that's exactly my point. Like, go back a couple years. We knew Georgia was definitively the best team. And it was like, okay, they're going to win. What's their record going to be or when they get to the college football playoff, yada, yada, yada. You get my point. Whereas this year, it's like you've got Georgia, you've got Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Clemson's even in the conversation, Texas. Okay,
And
maybe.
what we're also seeing too is we're seeing young teams, right, with a lot of transfer portal and a lot of transfer portal quarterbacks as well. Ohio State has one, Oregon has one. Um, these teams, it's taking them more time to gel. And on the road, where college football environments are more insane than arguably any other sport, these teams are struggling to win games.
Oh, yeah. Um, and on that note, like, you got a major game going down this weekend in Death Valley. Basically, it's a playoff eliminator. Alabama at LSU, both
Yeah,
of these teams with 2 losses. Whoever loses this game, they can kiss their season goodbye.
that's a real rivalry with a lot of history.
Oh, yeah. So College Game Day is going to be there this weekend. It's going to be a big matchup, and strange things happen down in Death Valley.